Now this is the Toyota Corolla GR Sport, the latest upgraded flagship version of the very popular crossover. The Corolla Cross often gets forgotten next to the Honda HR-V, but in quite a few ways I think this is the better family SUV for you. So, want to find out more? Let's go! This review is powered by BH Petrol Infinity. Switch to the premium fuel today to enjoy more power and better fuel economy. This GR Sport or the GRS shares the flagship status in the Corolla Cross range alongside the hybrid variant because they are both priced exactly the same at 142,000 ringgit. That makes it about 5,000 ringgit more than the 1.8V that this is based on. Compared to the Honda HR-V, the top of the range hybrid RS is priced about the same as this at 141,000 ringgit. But our actual pick of the HR-V range, the 1.5 litre Turbo V, is still about 7,000 ringgit less compared to this. So this is definitely the more expensive, more premium option compared to the Honda. But let's not forget that the Corolla Cross is just generally bigger than HR-V in pretty much everywhere. It's longer, it's wider, taller, with a longer wheelbase as well. And in fact, in a few markets including the US and China, Honda actually makes a whole different model altogether compared to the HR-V that competes against this Corolla Cross. So yeah, that just tells you that this is a bigger, more premium model as a whole. This is basically a continuation of the GRS sub-brand introduced to us in the previous generation Vios, but now it has been extended into the Hilux and the Corolla Cross that you see over here. This is a similar treatment to what Honda has done to its RS models, but Toyota has gone much further than Honda has. For the Corolla Cross GRS, the entire front end looks different. The entire front bumper is unique to this model only. The grille is now fully black for a sportier finish, and even the shape has been completely reworked to give it a wider, sportier stance overall. The grille, as you can see, sort of goes into the headlights a little bit to make it look less pointy, and I think it's just a better looking car. Even the lower half of the bumper just gives it a wider stance. Even the fog lamps have been moved from the center to more on the side to give it a more balanced look overall. Now, the standard Corolla Cross isn't a bad looker in any way, but the big, bulbous and dowdy front grille sort of reminds me of a French bulldog a little bit. I think if I were to get a Corolla Cross, this is the look I want to get. Having said that, I still don't like the fact that Toyota has used a rubber insert between the bonnet and the front grille. It just looks a little bit cheap overall, and there is still a large gap around the bonnet elsewhere. Yeah, not quite ideal. The headlights, however, I really do like. This uses bi-LED projectors, so it's got the same projector for both your low and high beams. This to me looks far more premium than the segmented LED reflectors on the HR-V. On the side, the Corolla Cross GRS gets its own unique wheels. Now these are the same size as before, 18 inches, but I do like the new Shuriken style dual tone design. But as is usual with these asymmetric designs, it sort of looks better from one side where it looks like it's moving forward, but the other side it sort of looks like it's going backwards instead, so yeah, not ideal there. But the tires are exactly the same as in the base car. Now these are not bad tires in any way. The Toyo Proxys CR1s are very good touring tires, but for a GR Sport model I would have expected a higher performance tires instead, which would have pushed the sportier look, vibe and feel even further still. Also unique to the GR Sport is the two-tone finish with a black roof. However, Toyota has also blacked out the nice long chrome strip over the C-pillar, which makes it look less prominent on this car. But thankfully, my favorite part of the Corolla Cross, the sculpted bulges around the wheels, are nice and present over here. You can even see a nice Easter egg or a nice icon of this on the rear quarter window. Around the back, the Corolla Cross GR Sport gets these clear lens so-called albino tail lamps. Now Honda has done the exact same thing with the HR-V RS, but here I think it looks even more prominent because, well, the taillights are just simply larger. At the bottom you've got this black diffuser insert which visually makes the car look wider than it actually is. At the very least, it looks better than the color-coded trim in the standard car, which look fine if you're on a silver or a white car, but when it's bright blue or bright red, it just looks all kinds of wrong. This is a much better solution, I think. Inside, the GRS trim adds very little to the Corolla Cross interior. You get red stitching across the steering wheel, the gear lever, the seats, plus GR Sport logos on the headrest and the push start button. You also get exclusive GR Sport carpet mats, but yeah, that's about it. The steering wheel is exactly the same, the meter's the same, you still don't get any pedal shifters, and the seat shape is the same as the standard car as well. That is slightly disappointing. But the rest of the cabin is actually very good. The top half is actually finished in hard plastics, yes, but they don't look or feel cheap in any way. The bottom half is all padded with soft materials, and the same goes with the door cards as well. Between this and the Honda HR-V, I think they are both about similar, but if I have to pick between the two, I'd say this feels slightly more expensive, slightly more premium. A small difference, but yeah, it's still there. The center screen, however, is definitely better on the Honda compared to Toyota here. This has a big and bulky cover on the back. This is basically one of those, usual 2-din boxes instead of a proper freestanding screen. The screen does have Apple CarPlay as standard over here, but it still uses a wired connection, and worse still, the cable comes out of the head unit itself, so you always have this dangling thing whenever you drive. It does not look good at all. This USB port should have been moved down here where you got this fully blank plate, which makes the whole thing look a little bit cheap, I'd say. Plus, the screen is also not fully integrated with the rest of the car. There is separate brightness controls for the screen and for the meter down there, so it sort of looks like you've got an aftermarket screen fitted on this car instead of a proper OEM device. Moving further up, you get a fully manual rear view mirror over here, a rather cheap looking dash cam, plus yellow halogen bulbs for all the interior lighting, so it doesn't feel like a premium product as a whole. But speaking of being stingy, I think the Honda HR-V is even worse still, because at least on this car you do get automatic wipers as standard. In the HR-V, that is reserved only for the top spec RS model. Why though? This is something that we've had for 10-15 years now. For you to reserve it only for the top spec model, yeah, not good. At the back, the Corolla Cross is just about okay. There's still plenty of legroom left, but nowhere near as much as in the Honda HR-V. Headroom, however, is much better here compared to the Honda. For your reference, I am only 167 centimeters tall, so I have a lot of headroom left, as I should, but in the Honda, my hair is almost brushing the ceiling. As for the seat itself, I think the base is rather flat, but the backrest is nicely sculpted. I think this is a nice place for long distance journeys. You can even recline the backrest if you so wish. My only real complaint is the rather narrow and cramped footwell at the bottom of this rear quarters. Other than that, I think this is a fine place to be. Amenities include rear aircon vents, which is an absolute must for the Malaysian weather. Plus, there's a pair of USB-C chargers at the bottom as well. Another thing I like is that the rear windows go all the way down, as you can see over there, although the power window motor is a little bit loud, as you can hear. One more thing I like about the Toyota is that it comes from the factory with solar and security window tints, so as soon as you buy the car, you can just straight away drive it. You don't have to spend extra money on adding accessories here and there. This is a small but crucial thing that only Toyota and Perodua does here in Malaysia, and not many others do. Moving on to the boot, it's quite generous at 440 litres, competitive against the Honda HR-V. You get a very wide and deep load space despite having a spare tyre under the floor. An advantage this car has over the Honda is the use of a dedicated roller-style tonneau cover instead of the makeshift sunshade-style cover on the HR-V. But other than that, the Toyota does lose out on the genius fold-up Ultra seats in the HR-V, so in terms of absolute practicality, the HR-V is still a step above the Corolla Cross. So, driving the Toyota Corolla Cross GR Sport, despite the name, is a very relaxing, quiet and comfortable affair. Let's start with the engine. First, there is a 1.8 litre naturally aspirated engine. Now, this makes 139 PS and 172 Newton meters of torque. Now, that's hardly earth-shattering figures and well below what's offered in the turbocharged Honda HR-V. And the figures, well, that's pretty much how it feels to drive. This gets from 0 to 100 in about 12 seconds, far slower compared to the 9 seconds the Honda HR-V Turbo takes. And yeah, there's pretty much not much to talk about it at all. It feels just fine. It's not underpowered in any way. It feels okay enough. Not powerful, not slow, just okay. And there's nothing wrong with that, because this really isn't, a powerful performance car by any means, and I think this sort of performance is acceptable. It's fine, it's good even. What's actually better in the Toyota compared to the Honda is the CVT transmission. It is smoother, it's far more seamless, there's less rubber banding effect on this car compared to the Honda HR-V. But the one thing that you cannot escape in this car is the engine noise, as I'm sure you can hear right now. You probably hear more of that compared to my voice right now. The engine is a really loud and vocal one, especially on full throttle, but for the most part, when you're just driving along in highways, in town, on open roads, it doesn't feel all that intrusive. But of course, when you plant your foot down, yeah, it gets very annoying. The Honda is almost equally as loud, but at least you do get the performance to go along with the noise. Here you don't. Now onto fuel consumption, where the Corolla Cross GRS is pretty decent. Across over 300 kilometers that I've driven this car, I've reached around 6.6 liters per 100 kilometers. That works out to about 15 kilometers per liter, which for a car of this size is not too bad. But at the same time, that is also about the same figure that I got with the Honda HR-V 1.5 Turbo, and that car is, as you know, a far more powerful vehicle. So that is more powerful with the same fuel consumption, so I'd give the win to the Honda and not this one. But still, 15 kilometers per liter for a big family SUV like this, that's not too bad. That is pretty respectable in its own self. The fuel economy tests were carried out with BH Petrol Infinity, the fully imported premium fuel with maximum German additives for peak performance to give you more power, mileage and more savings. Now let's talk about handling for this Corolla Cross GRS. On the performance side, it is exactly the same as the base car, which is a little bit disappointing to most people. But the bigger difference is in the suspension system, is in the steering, where there have been certain tweaks to make this car more dynamic than before. The base Corolla Cross with its TNGA platform was already a pretty good handling car to begin with. So having tighter, stiffer springs all around is definitely a good way to go for this GR Sport. But at the same time, Toyota has not gone crazy and put on, race spec, really stiff suspension on the Corolla Cross. This still is, beyond anything else, a family cruiser at its heart, so that part of its character is still intact. What it has done is tightened everything up, so now it feels closer to a European style SUV compared to a, loose and bouncy Japanese SUV. That's definitely the right way to go, I think. So in terms of ride, this is a very comfortable, very controlled suspension system, especially if you sit in the back. The sort of bounce that you get on this car is a lot less, a lot more controlled, a lot more muted compared to the Honda HR-V, I think. So despite this having so-called sport stiffer suspension, it still turns out to be more comfortable than the Honda, which is quite surprising really. And then we get to the handling, where Toyota has also included a sport ECU for the electronic power steering system. This doesn't really do much. It tightens up the steering load as you go through the corners, but it doesn't really add any real genuine feel to the rim. So driving it along through corners, through long curves, it feels not much different compared to a standard Corolla Cross, but the stiffer suspension definitely gives a better feedback of the road to the driver. You do feel more confident tackling faster corners in this compared to the regular Corolla Cross. The difference isn't massive. I think in the previous generation Vios GRS, the difference was much more significant. Here is just small gains here and there, but there is a net gain overall. This does feel like an improvement over the regular car. Small bits here and there, but it's all in the right direction. This does feel like a more complete car compared to the base model. But as I'm sure you can hear from the start of the drive to now is the really loud and annoying wind noise on this car. I think most of this comes from the atrocious, aftermarket looking window visors fitted as standard on this car. Pretty much all cars I've driven with window visors have a bit extra wind noise, but this is just ridiculously loud. You can start hearing a small whistle above, like, say 70 kilometers per hour, and as soon as you touch 100 or 120, it becomes deafening. You start shouting to your passengers or turning up the music even louder than you should be. It really is very intrusive. Toyota needs to fix this very soon. If it's me, I would just rip out the whole thing because I don't like the look of it anyway, and with the extra wind noise, it's actually bad for the car. So yeah, better to have it without the thing. And that is a real pity because besides the wind noise, this is a pretty refined car. Yes, the engine is pretty loud when you push it on, but on normal drives as you cruise along, it is nearly silent. In this department, Honda has improved the HRV by leaps and bounds compared to the previous generation, but even the latest version is still not quite as good as the Toyota Corolla Cross. This car, in terms of refinement, is just superb. Pity about that though. Next, a quick one on the active safety system on this car. This runs the slightly outdated Toyota Safety Sense 2.0 active safety system, so it does have the full suite of features including autonomous emergency braking, adaptive cruise control, lane tracing assist, so-called level 2 semi-autonomous driving, and so on. But in operation, it's not quite as good as the one I've tried in the Honda HR-V. The lane tracing system, especially the level 2 semi-autonomous driving, doesn't seem to work quite as well. It doesn't seem to hold the steering to the center of the lane quite as good as the newer system in the Honda HR-V. Newer models in Toyota's range with the updated TSS 3.0 would be much better, but we are still stuck with the 2.0 in the Corolla Cross. Another negative point is the use of a foot parking brake on this car, which is something that is so old school. Most of the time when I drive this car, when I park it, I completely forget that there is a separate pedal on the left side. I keep looking for a switch or an EPB, electronic parking brake switch, which most modern cars have now. With this, I feel like I'm going back 5-10 years in car terms. I think it is such a pity that we are getting the downgraded version of the Toyota Corolla Cross in the ASEAN region, whereas the same car in Japan, in Europe, has a proper EPB. I just don't get that. But at the same time, the Corolla Cross that we have here in Malaysia does have a few advantages over its key rival, the Honda HR-V. For one, it has a full 360-degree camera parking system, whereas in the Honda, for some reason, it only has a reverse camera. The one we have in the Toyota is definitely far more useful. And then we also have a two-side blind spot monitor, far more useful compared to the single-sided Honda lane watch in the HR-V. Add to that the standard window tint, the dash cam, the wireless charger, and I think there's just a lot more amenities, a lot more extra features offered in the Toyota compared to the Honda. So that's my full review of the Toyota Corolla Cross GR Sport. I think it is a substantial enough improvement over the standard car, especially in terms of looks. Now, in terms of dynamics, the change is less significant, but I do appreciate the tighter feel of the suspension and the steering wheel as well. If you ask me, I think this is definitely worth the 5,000 ringgit extra over the 1.8V, and this is for sure my pick of the range in the Corolla Cross range. Compared to its rival, the Honda HR-V, despite this car now having stiffer comfortable suspension, the Corolla Cross is still more comfortable of the two, especially in terms of highway runs and bumpy roads. Plus, as you've seen in this video, this still has a nicer, more quality feel to the interior and more convenience features as well. But still, there is no denying that there is a huge performance gap between this and the turbocharged Honda HR-V. I think if you're looking for a dynamic and fast SUV, you should go for the Honda. But for the rest of us who would prefer a more usable daily SUV for the family, this would be my pick. Would you go for the HR-V or the Corolla Cross? Let me know in the comment section below. For now, thank you for watching and stay safe, everyone. This review is powered by BH Petrol Infinity. Switch to the premium fuel today to enjoy more power and better fuel economy.